Every woman deserves to feel vibrant, safe, loved, and feel her power. The Woman's Vibrancy Code podcast is here for a potent use of your time. We will cover energy, hormones, and libido with episodes that also dive into entrepreneurship, money mindset, feminine power, and much, much more. Introducing Maraya Brown, Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, and entrepreneur.
Hello, everyone. Ooh, I've got a fun one. For those of you chiming in, welcome to Women's Vibrancy Code. I'm Maraya Brown, and I have Tony Child with me today. I'm on a celebratory trip in the energy of gratitude, which is very relevant to what we're talking about. And I surprised the kids. We are down at Disneyland because I realized that in all the years that I've had accomplishments, I've continued to move the goalpost and never really celebrated, really celebrated. So I'm here feeling a lot of gratitude. So we get to talk about women and peak performance. And when we talk about peak performance, that's in life, in athletics, in motherhood, in wifehood, as well as achievements at work. So for any women who are driven and want to strive to expand, and a lot of that comes down to our worthiness and self-worth. So I have Tony Child with me, and let me tell you a little bit about him. I've met him in person, and it was lovely. Just forever grateful for the time that I've been able to be graced by his presence. So Tony Child is the CEO and founder of the international coaching company, Elevated Worldwide. Tony is a high-performance coach, a gratitude expert, and expert on human performance and change management. He says that we help performers discover their winning edge and create breakthroughs. So Tony, we were talking a little bit off camera, and I know you have a number of businesses. So when I first met you, what I remember hearing is that you work specifically with professional athletes as they're transitioning out of their professional athletic career and into life outside, so to speak. And so that makes a lot of sense in regard to peak performance. So first, can you tell us a little bit about that? How did you get there? And then let's talk more specifically about the women that are listening, that are driven, wanting to really create big lives, whatever that is for them. And what does high performance look like in both of those contexts?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I am really privileged to be here. I love teaching. I love coaching. And I'm super blessed, really excited to be here. And so your question was about how I got into really helping professional athletes transition out of their career. Is that what I heard first?
Yeah. How did you get into that space? And then, let's start there.
Okay. So first of all, you have to have a dream. And so my dream when I was a little boy was I wanted to play professional athletics. And then I had all of the people in my life that were around me tell me why that would never happen. And so I lost it. I lost that dream. And it wasn't until just over a decade ago when I got into positive psychology that I was like, all right, I want to teach and coach professional athletes. Now, I thought it would be while they were in their career. And then I started studying the impacts of athletes after they got out of their career and found some really astounding statistics. One of them being that 78% of professional athletes go bankrupt within 3 years of their playing career. And that just astounded me of why? These peak performers, if you think of professional athletes, they are some of the most highest peak performers on the planet. And how is it that they lose everything? I was really, really intrigued by that. And so I just really dove into how do I help them keep it? How do I help them keep their money? And what I found is that an athlete from the time that they are really, really small. So when you go to a 4-year-old that loves football and you ask them what are you going to do when you grow up? It's I'm going to play football. And then you go to that same 4-year-old when they're a teenager and you say, hey, who are you? And it's I play football. I play, on the Gremlins team or whatever. And then they get to high school and it's who are you? And I'm a football player. I play on the varsity football team. And then they get to college and people ask them, who are you? And it's I'm a football player. I play college football. And then they get to the NFL and people ask them who are you? And it's I play football. I'm a football player. And then one day they get cut, they get hurt, or they retire. And somebody asks them, who are you? And they don't know. They can't answer the question. And they go on this identity crisis of trying to figure out who they are. And that is my passion. It's helping them figure out who they are and that they are not an athlete. They are a human that learned very specific mental habits that got them to the highest levels. And that if they can take those same mental habits and apply them to business or apply them to family or apply them to other areas, they can be a peak performer in all other areas. They just didn't know how they did it. And so part of the work that I do with them is teaching them how they got to the NFL. And it wasn't because I worked harder than everyone else. It was very, very specific mental habits that they developed to get to the highest levels. And now let's transition you into life using those same mental habits, but transition them into business or into family, other things. So I did it with one Olympic athlete, and then that Olympic athlete introduced me to a couple of others. And then I got introduced to the NFL. And now I literally deal with NFL athletes. That's who I love coaching, is NFL athletes that are leaving their careers and getting, into life.
And so then for the women that are listening that maybe aren't professional athletes, maybe they're not athletes at all, but I can say there have been two distinct times in my life where I had that identity crisis of, wait a minute, I was this XYZ identity until I attended my first birth. And wait a minute, here I am in Fortune 50 in business suits and stilettos every day. But wait a minute, I'm actually a midwife. And that's one example. And I imagine there's other women here listening that have had a moment where they became a mother, they became a wife, they changed careers, had some epiphany of, wait a minute, who I thought I was is now changing. And so for the women who have been driven and been successful in one space, and then are in a transition, which inevitably happens, even maybe they're just postpartum now, or they're transitioning through perimenopause and into menopause, whatever that is, how do we carry that over and tell some women where to start if they're in that kind of, I use the example of from the caterpillar to the butterfly, they're in the chrysalis and they're goo going, wait, what is happening right now?
So that's a great question. And the way that I would answer that, I would let's say that a woman, that their whole childhood, when you ask them, who do you want to be? And it's I just want to be a mom. I just want to be a mom and I want to have lots of kids. And then when they're in high school, it's I want to be a mom and I want to have lots of kids. And then they get to be the age of a mom, they get married and they can't have kids. Or they have a kid and they lose the kid. When we wrap our identity in a role, then that's where suffering comes in. These are roles that we have, but that's not who we are. Our identity is so much deeper of we are a spiritual being and we are creators. And yes, I have a male figure. And yes, I am a father to two boys. And yes, I'm a husband to a wife of 19 years. But that's not who my identity is wrapped up into. Because heaven forbid, if I lose both my boys or I get divorced, then that will cause a tailspin. Because when somebody asks me, who are you? And if that's where my identity was wrapped in, then one day I won't be able to answer it. And so it's getting really deep about who you really are. And so the places that there's lots of different places you can start, but spirituality is a big deal. And I know that you talk about in this group spirituality, that do you really go deep with who you really are as a human being, and that you're not your sex, you're not all the roles that you say you are. There is so much deeper to who you are.
So what I'm hearing is when we attach ourselves to the identity, it's about who we are and who we've become to create this life. But when we attach to the identity, that's where suffering happens. And instead to really acknowledge the who we have become in the process, because that infuses into the next identity and the next identity. And so what you're saying is, for peak performance, we start with, who am I really?
Yeah.
And so where does a woman, what if a woman says, I don't really know?
So here's the thing, and this is where I would have people start, is who you are not, and you are not your achievements. Because a lot of people, they'll wrap their worth, and in particular, I know of a lot of women that wrap their worth in what they can do and who they look like and how they look. And so the way that I would describe this, who you really are, let's dive into who you really are. Okay. So I was up in Jackson Hole with one of my mentors, and we were sitting around the fire, and he asked me, he said, Tony, like, what are you studying? What's going on? What are you really intrigued in right now? And it's like, I'm studying like this idea of becoming and this idea of like, who am I becoming? And he looked at me and he said, that seems pretty hard. I was like, no, it's not. It's like, who am I becoming? He's like, there's an easier way. Can I help you? I was like, sure, help me figure this out. He's like, all right, so I want you to tell me, what are all of the things that you think you need to become the person that you think you want to become? So it's like, well, okay, so I want to become an uber successful speaker. Okay, perfect. So what do you think you need to become an uber successful speaker? I need confidence. I need bravery. I need to be a risk taker. I need to be persistent. It's like, okay, awesome. Great. Is that it? And I went on for a couple more things and are you done? I'm like, okay, so where are you going with this? And he said something that was really, really important to me. He said, Tony, I want you to reflect on a 2-year-old. Tell me about a 2-year-old. Tell me about all the characteristics of a 2-year-old. And I started naming off and I started to say, they're forgiving, they're present, they're believing, they're persistent, they're loud, they're confident, they're all of these things. And then he said this. He said, Tony, wouldn't it be a lot easier in life that instead of trying to become someone you're not, to just remember who you already are? Hmm. And so I've found that this identity that we create through all these roles and through all of these social idealisms and through all of like the social constructs of who we are supposed to be, that's not the diamond that's within us of who we really are. That when we think I need to be prettier, I need to be more confident, I need to be this, I need to be that, it's like we already are that. Somebody's told us we are not. So the first thing I would give with anybody that's listening right now is to just look at yourself in the mirror and just know that the person looking back to you already is confident, already is beautiful, already is loud. You've just forgotten it. And you've constructed this image that is completely false, that everyone thinks that if people just knew who I was, they would just like totally disown me. And so we spend all of our time protecting an image that is just quite frankly crap. It's like, why are you protecting that?
Well, and I think it also gets kind of taught out of us. It's conditioned out of us in some ways. You have to get good grades. You have to sit still in your chair. I mean, the moment the 2-year-old starts going to school, you have to choose. You get this thing or that thing. You don't get both.
Yeah. That we get taught that like when you're in the grocery store, just think about this. Like we're in the grocery store and you've got your child and then they're in the front seat of the cart. And all of a sudden there's a man that's right behind you and they're playing peekaboo with your 2-year-old, and your 2-year-old's trying to look around you and they're just, laughing and giggling. And as the parent, you are going nuts inside thinking, I've got to teach my kid not to talk to strangers. I've got to teach that this is stranger danger. They don't know who that person is behind me. And so as we're walking out of the store, we're looking at our 2-year-old. We don't talk to strangers. Strangers are super dangerous and we don't talk to strangers. And that child starts to develop a construct that strangers are dangerous. And then they wonder why at 45 years old, they can't talk to strangers. Mm-hmm. When at 2 years old, they could talk to strangers easily and effortlessly. They'd go up to any stranger and talk to them. Right. But at 45, now they can't. Mm-hmm. And the 45 is the fake image. Mm-hmm. The 2-year-old was the real image.
So what I'm hearing is if you're helping individuals reach their peak performance and it ties back to our self-worth, that we simply have to remember who we already are and really who we were as young children before it was taught or conditioned or learned out of us.
Yeah, I mean, very much so. I mean, there's a lot of different things that your brain's going to do to you. So we have something called confirmation bias. Mm-hmm. And confirmation bias is going to show us everything that we believe in the world about us. So everything I believe, my brain is going out and it's saying, see, you believe in this. Let me show you this. And let me show you this. Let me show you this. And our brain, it wants to see the things that we believe. Mm-hmm. And so if I have a fractured self-image, if I believe that I am unlovable, then my brain will literally go out and find every evidence of why I'm unlovable. It will show me every evidence of, yep, see, I told you you're unlovable. Yep, see, there it is. There it is again. Told you you're unlovable. And it will show me every single way and reason why I'm unlovable. And so the key is to go back to, it's remembering who we're not. So that's the first key, is like totally shedding all of this crap, all of this junk, the garbage that's put onto us. It's unshedding that. And then it's re-armoring ourselves with, who am I really? Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
The one belief that cripples people more than any belief is this idea that they are not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not smart enough. I don't have as many degrees as that person has. I'm not talented enough. I'm not a good enough speaker. I can't go do that. I'm not brave enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not healthy enough. When you look in the mirror and you see someone who's not enough, your brain will literally turn around and show you a world of not enough.
Mm-hmm.
There will never be enough love. There will never be enough time. If the clock in your head is this, which most women, I know that this is, I don't have enough hours in the day. I'm like a chicken with its head cut off. There is not enough time. I don't have enough time to do that. I don't have enough time for this. I don't have enough time for that. That not enoughness stems from looking in the mirror and seeing someone not enough.
Mm.
So now I look at everything through that lens of, there's not enough love, there's not enough time, there's not enough money, there's not enough vacation time, there's not enough, it's just perpetual in everything. And then my brain now, it will see and it will confirm to me all the things that are not enough. And so it's flipping that in the brain. It's saying, no, I want to see a world of always enough. And that starts with really seeing me as who I am, that I am always enough.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get better? Of course I can. Can I get smarter? Of course I can. Can I get healthier? Of course I can. Can I get richer? Of course I can. But who I am at my core, I am a worthy man and I am enough. That's who I am.
Yes.
And any women listening to this right now, I want you just look right now, you are a worthy woman and you are enough.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you said, not because of your achievements, not because of what you've done.
Yes.
But just simply enough.
Yes. Because of just being you.
Mm-hmm.
Just being. You are enough and you are worthy. And the moment your brain catches that of, okay, I'm beginning to believe this. I'm beginning to believe that I am worthy and I am enough. I will begin to see a world of more than enough. I'll be present because I believe that there's always enough time. I'll be generous because I believe that I always have enough money. I'll be forgiving because I believe that there's more than enough love. I will just be those things. I don't have to decide those things. It will just be a byproduct of knowing there's always enough because I'm enough.
Mm-hmm. I had a mentor once say to me that facts don't change beliefs. So if we have a belief, potentially we're only going to see the facts that align with that belief. And so then I go, well, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So if we're going to try to start shifting the feeling of enoughness, do we first start by seeing new facts? Or do we start by changing the belief and then trying to shift? Like I've heard you talk about the reticular activating system, which I love. But how does a woman start to actively shift the facts that are coming in, the people she's tuning into, the Facebook pages she's watching, the radio stations? Where do we start if we're wanting to change the belief that I'm actually enough?
Yes, such a good question. So your brain, you are right. It's constantly looking out there. It's constantly confirming. It's constantly seeing like, okay, like you are not enough or you are always enough. And it's always out there trying to confirm. And we're either one of two things. We're either an object acted upon or an agent who acts. We're one of those two. So if I'm an object acted upon, that goes to your first question. That's like, I have all of these things confirming to me the person that I am. I look at my bank account and it literally is not enough. So how can you tell me, Tony, that I have more than enough money when my bank account is negative? But now what happens is so here's psychology 101. What I think causes how I feel. The repetition of how I feel causes a belief now within me that that's just the way things are. That belief triggers an energy with which I act, and it's the energy with which I act that produces my results. Okay? That's
Yes.
like psychology 101.
Yes.
So I have to trick myself to thinking a new thought to feeling a new feeling to developing a new belief so that the energy I'm acting with is a different energy. But if I allow my five senses, what I see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, to control what I think, then it will continue to repeat how I feel, which then will confirm to me the belief, which then will keep reproducing all of the results that I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
So if I look at a bank account that is negative and it triggers a thought of you are worthless, you are completely like horrible, lazy person because you let your account go negative. Now my feeling is worthlessness and I am ashamed. I am guilty. I am ashamed. I can't believe I let this happen to me. That now confirms the belief of I'm unworthy. And then I wonder why my results keep producing the same thing.
I imagine it's a woman gets on the scale and puts on 5 pounds, or
Yes.
leaves the dishes undone, doesn't do the laundry, doesn't finish the project, forgets to pick up her child at the right time, whatever it may be. These little things where we just beat ourselves up.
Yes. And all it does is it just reproduces the chemistry that reproduces the energy that goes into the action that causes the reaction that keeps producing the same cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So your subconscious, you have a conscious mind, you have a subconscious. Okay. Your brain is not your conscious. Your heart is not your subconscious. Your subconscious is your mind and it's in every cell of your body. Okay. The subconscious scientifically controls 93 to 97% of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You are consciously aware only 3 to 7% of your day. The other 93 to 97%, it is subconscious. You blink your eyes, you put your gas pedal from the brake to the gas, to the brake to the gas. When you see the light turn orange and green, and like it is all subconscious. The subconscious is like fertile ground. If I go outside and I want to plant a potato spud and I want to plant poison ivy, the ground doesn't care what I plant. I can plant the poison ivy and it will grow the poison ivy as well as it will grow the potato spud. It doesn't care what I plant. It takes what I plant and it will produce whatever I plant.
Mm-hmm.
Your subconscious is exactly like that. It doesn't spit out the things that are bad or wrong with life. It doesn't say that's wrong. You shouldn't be thinking that thought. It says, oh, you want to think that thought? Let me nurture that thought. And now let me produce that result. It doesn't care if it's poison ivy. It will keep producing the poison ivy. But we think we're like, well, no, but I want oranges. Well, then plant oranges. Like if you want oranges, stop planting poison ivy.
Right.
And here's the key. You have to learn to trick your subconscious mind and heal the old things. So there's two parts that go to this. I want to heal who I'm not, and I want to plant who I really am. And a lot of us are like, so you're lying to yourself? It's like, no, you have been lying to yourself for the last 30 years. We're going to actually plant the truth that I am worthy, I am rich, and I am whatever, like whatever you're planting, that's the actual truth.
Mm-hmm.
The lie is what you've been feeding yourself for the last 40 years.
Right. I am loved. I am pregnant. I belong. I mean, there's so many things. So I know that you're the master of gratitude. And one of the opportunities that I had when I brought this with me on the trip, because when I had time with Tony in Florida, he gifted this to me, which is so lovely. It's Gratishift, one of the things that Elevated Worldwide does. And so I know that you really speak from a place of gratitude. So I'm guessing that as we talk about changing what we think and the not enoughness, for the goal of peak performance in whatever peak performance looks like for an individual, I'm going to guess that it has something to do with gratitude.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about that.
So this has been a great discussion, and this is kind of the climax of the discussion here of gratitude and why gratitude matters. So I was with one of my mentors up in Toronto. He's a very big name in the personal development industry, and he was one of my mentors, and I was his top consultant in the world. And I remember I was sitting there at the table, and all of these clients of his had paid $15,000 to be there. And he's sitting up on the stage and he's yelling at the top of his lungs, do you know what you want? You got to know what you want to, like, think big and dream. And I mean, he's like really getting animated. And I'm looking around at my table, and there's 8 people on the table, 4 on this side, 4 on this side. And I'm in the middle, and I'm looking around, and I'm seeing 1 out of the 8, like just scribbling, knowing what they want. And the other 7, it's like deer in the headlights look.
Mm-hmm.
And I was perplexed. It's like, okay, obviously he's very motivating. So this isn't a motivation thing. There's something missing here. And so as a man of faith, I just knelt down one day and it was like, okay, God, I got to know if you could teach me one thing, what would transform a human being faster than anything else? And then I shut up. And the way that God talks to me, it's like just thoughts that I get in my head. And the thought was, teach them how to be grateful. I was like, I laughed. So like Maraya, I laughed out loud. I'm like, be grateful. I was like, I'm grateful. And the answer back was, no, you're not. And so the next question was, well, what does it mean to be grateful? And the next 3 years, I dove into all the science of gratitude and what gratitude does to the brain and what it does to the heart and what it does to beliefs. See, most of us are conditioned to look at life through what's missing. And if I'm conditioned to look at life through what's missing, in essence, I'm looking at life through what's in lack or that there's not enough. And I'll continue to reproduce not enough in my life. It is impossible, now that I know what I know, it is impossible to feel unworthy and grateful at the same time. It's impossible. Can't happen. You can't feel appreciation. You can't get that feeling of like, man, life is so good and unworthy. I'm not enough in the same time. It can't happen. It's impossible. And so what I found is that if I can condition my brain to see what is actually present, not what's missing, but what's here, then I will start to reprogram the conditioning of my brain. So the program that was born from these 3 years of research was the neural pathway chains and what it means to be grateful. And that's the program that you have right there. And it's all about repetition. So you repeat a statement out loud every day, and it's all about changing the way you think to change the way you feel. You listen to an audio every day that starts to change that neural pathway of what you're listening to. You watch a lesson, you write in a workbook, and all of it's doing is reprogramming the neural pathways to start to see a world that, man, I am blessed. There is so much good in my life. And the moment that happens, it's magic. Like you begin to see more. It's like, I didn't notice that I had more money in my bank account. It just happens. And it's because now I've changed my brain to look at all the things that I do have, I get more. That's the lack versus abundant mindset. And grata shift is the shift from lack or not enough to always enough and abundance. That's why it's called grata shift. It's the shift with gratitude from lack to abundance. And it's not just practicing gratitude, it's being grateful.
I'm thinking of a time when I was at my low, when I was sad, I was angry, I felt trapped. And I remember someone telling me, well, just practice gratitude. And I felt like throwing the bird. It was like,
yes.
I don't need like that. To me, it felt like I'm on one side of a river and you're asking me to jump across. I'm 5'1". I'm not jumping across the river. Like, give me some stepping stones. And so where I started was with Abraham's, what is the wheel
Maslow
of
hierarchy of need.
well, not Maslow's, Abraham, and they have the emotional like ladder.
Okay.
But the point is, I started with, well, okay, is there something I'm satisfied with? So for a woman, if it feels like grateful is too big of a leap, can we start with just satisfied?
Can you just start with what's present?
Yeah.
It's not even what you're satisfied with. It's what I have. And most of the time, it's what I'm in pain with. I'll give you a brief example. So I, on Tuesday night, went to go play basketball. I play basketball every Tuesday night. And I went to go steal the ball. And the moment I came down, I popped my calf. And it hurt so bad, like so bad. And I'm limping over to the stage and I'm upset, I'm angry. And then all of a sudden, the image of my best friend comes into my head. And his name is Jeff Griffin. He can't walk. He's in a wheelchair. And immediately my mind went to, oh man, I get to feel this pain because that man would die to feel this pain. And it just reframed my brain of even the pain of a leg was like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. Because I get to feel this, where other people that don't have that ability would die to feel that.
Thank you for that perspective. It's the emotional guidance scale is what I was thinking of. It's Abraham Hicks. If you're not familiar with it, I think you would really enjoy it. Last question before you head on is you've given a link for my community.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you would just tell us a little bit about what that is for the keeplimitless.com
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about why would someone click on that link? What is it?
Yeah.
What are they going to?
Yeah. First of all, because your producer said like, hey, can you write an article and share an article? And it's like, yeah, I could, but I absolutely have thoroughly enjoyed every interaction that I've had with you, Maraya. And it's like, I want to give more to this community. I don't want to just give an article and you can go read the article. I love teaching. As you can tell, like I love teaching. I love what I do. I've been blessed with gifts to make things that are really complicated. I can teach them in a really simple manner for people to understand them. And so what I did is I ran an event. It was a 2-day online event and it's called Elevate. And we ran this event and people paid, anywhere from $47 up to $97 to come to the event. And so we were in the process of sending out replays to people because we had just gotten them off and we were sending out replays to people. And I thought, you know what? I would love to just give this event to your people. And so if you click on the link, it's this event that I produced. It's a 2-day event. It has a workbook. And so it might seem overwhelming and daunting to you to see like 4 sections and like 4 hours each, but it's the in-depth knowledge of everything that we just started to talk about today. And so if you struggle with any of the things that we talked about worth and about not enoughness or any of these, like, I want to be a peak performer, but I am not driven. How do I get driven? Like all of these things I address over 2 days. And so there is also a coaching call. Even though this is not live, the uniqueness of this event is we do a coaching call throughout the event. And so I've alerted my coaches that if somebody signs up on their link, that this is what it is. And we're going to do a coaching call for you for free. So it's a 20-minute coaching call to really just dive in with you and see what are your blocks? What's going on right now? Let's talk. And so all of that is there in the link. And that's
so
all
generous
for free for your community.
Thank you, Tony. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sure that the women are also appreciative as well. So the other thing that I'm thinking is the women that I talk to who it's hard for them to prioritize themselves. Like there might be someone saying, I don't know if I have any issues with self-worth. And yet in that same conversation, they will give and give to everyone else. But when it comes to actually prioritizing themselves, self-worth shows up. So I'm wondering who is the woman who is most likely to really just grab this stuff and desire it and want to eat it all up?
Yeah. First of all, a very driven woman, somebody that's not satisfied, that's like, no, I want more. I want to be the fullest creation that I was created to be. And I feel this like ache in my chest that I'm not fulfilling my fullest potential. And I want to do that. I want to know what that is. And I'm ready. I'm ready to do what it takes to step into my power. So the first thing I would share is like that woman, the one that's driven, the one that's like, I'm ready to go. Those are the ones that really eat this up and really just take in the information. And it's all about like, how do I level up? How do I make quantum leaps, not just exponential gains? The second thing I would share is this, and I think that this is a really important thing. If you have a hard time receiving, see, one of the biggest signs that you are abundant is that you are generous. It's the ability to give and receive more than is expected or needed. And there's a lot of people that are like, dude, I'm totally generous. I give and I give and I give. And it's like, awesome. That's one side of the coin. Can you receive without the need to give? And that's where most people are completely stuck. They can't receive. They give and they give and they give and they give. But when somebody wants to give to them, it's like, either A, no, I'm good, I don't want that, or B, they tally in their head. Okay, he bought me lunch or she bought me lunch. So now it's my turn next time to buy them lunch because I can't just let them buy me lunch. It's like, why? And the reason why is because deep down inside, I don't believe I'm worth the lunch. If I struggle with receiving, it's because deep down inside, I'm not worth the gift. That's what we got to solve. You are worthy. You are worth the receiving of gifts in your life. So be a receiver as well as a giver.
So good. I could keep talking to you forever. And but I really do want to honor that you have to go. Thank you so much. Thank you for our time together when we were at the conference in Florida. Thank you for talking me off the cliff when I was in a place of scarcity thinking. Thank you for gratitude. And thank you for your time and your generous offer to the women that are listening to this so that we all can be in our absolute abundance and enoughness and receive and give and feel our power and change the way that we think so that our results change. It's all just been so juicy. Any last parting words from you that feel important to say?
You are enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out there, if you're listening, you don't need to be skinnier. You don't need to be prettier. You don't need to be healthier. You don't need to be smarter. Doesn't mean that you can't go after those things. It just means that the way you are right now, you're already enough. And that's the message that I just want every person, every human being on this planet to leave with is like, you know what? I don't need to compare myself against anyone. I don't need to be better than or less than anyone I see. I just need to be the best version of me.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Awesome. Thank you again, Tony, for who you are in the world.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I appreciate it.
Of course, my pleasure.
Wasn't this episode amazing? Let's distill it down to key takeaways and action steps.
All right, so let's recap some of my big takeaways. So first of all, Tony, if you did not feel his heart, let me tell you, it is big, it is profound. He really does care. And the generosity of his offer is absolutely worth taking a peek at and clicking on the link if you are a driven woman and you can acknowledge that maybe there's some space to feel more enough, to feel more worthy, and to start getting into the practice of shifting the way in which you think to move more towards the space of gratitude and more towards seeing what you already have. So I really enjoyed what he had to say around our identity being the source of suffering, and that we're not our achievements or the things that we have done, but instead we get to remember who we actually are at the core. And that is absolutely worthy and absolutely enough. I really appreciate his thoughts around what we think creates how we feel, which then dictates what we believe, which then affects how we act, which then creates our results. So the life that you are currently living really is starting with what you are thinking. So cheers to all of us taking an account and catching ourselves when we are seeing anything through the lens of it not being enough. Not anything that we have to be, but to look through the lens of what is already there. And when we put it into perspective, such as he's feeling the pain of a ripped muscle and his good friend who has no sensation from being paralyzed has no sensation, that everything in our life, there is the capacity for us to feel grateful for it. So cheers to you receiving. Here is Tony's gift to you, my gift to you. Enjoy his offer. And thank you for your participation and support with the Women's Vibrancy Code. Please follow, please give a solid review, and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Women's Vibrancy Code. Connect with us and take the first step to transforming your energy, hormones, and libido at thewomensvibrancycode.com. Cheers to your zest and vitality. Make sure to follow for weekly power-packed value.